All right, we are recording. So now, for all new endeavors, we need to start properly because we're in Kentucky, a new bottle of bourbon. And this is probably going to be the hardest bottle of bourbon to open.
It is, yes. But it's so pretty, though.
So this will be one of our best bottles to date. Pinhook, 9-year single barrel vertical series.
Here we go.
Oh. And that
was a good one.
Will open the doors on So Where To Next podcast.
Where to next?
Ooh, that's good. So welcome to the So Where To Next podcast with Corie and Clinton. I'm Clinton.
I'm Corie.
And we are so happy to get this new endeavor started. It's a new concept for us, a new direction and path that we are super excited about because we love travel and we know tons of people love travel. A lot of our friends love travel because they tell us that. Mm-hmm. Our travel specifically. So we want to share the travel love.
We do. So we hear from people all the time. I've been keeping up with your adventures and I've watched you on Facebook or I've seen your pictures on Instagram and they're beautiful. And oh my gosh, you guys are always on the go.
We are.
But I think people maybe don't realize how easy it is and how attainable it is. And so this podcast is hopefully going to help demystify what we all consider as travel, because of course that's different for everybody. Travel could be your commute into work every day. Travel could be being a tourist in your own hometown or going across the country or going across the world. So, I mean, it could be lots of things, but we're going to talk about all of it, actually.
Yeah.
All of it.
All of it.
Yeah.
And more.
Yes, all of it and more. So the whole point of this podcast for us is to share some realistic travel and experiences for people who are maybe just sort of figuring it out. Maybe you've traveled before, or maybe you feel like you want to try something new. We are not quite empty nesters. We've got a kid in college and one still in high school. But we find ourselves on occasion with a free weekend, or we find ourselves on occasion because of the way that our household is blended, that we have a little bit of free time every now and then. And we want to try to go have some life experiences. So for me, travel is kind of synonymous with an experience as opposed to just going somewhere. What about you? Like, what do you think?
Definitely. And anybody who knows me, and you guys will learn throughout this process, that I'm very much into the experience part of everything. And, you know, the journey is as much fun as the destination usually.
I actually prefer the destination to the journey, though. So Clint and I are a little different here. I don't love the road trip or flying part. I don't love the getting there because I get really excited and I really love planning it. And then I like being there. And then I get really sad when it's time to come home. But Clinton is most definitely the adventurer out of the two of us. And anyone listening, that if you know him, he's pretty well known in some circles for enjoying the some of the crazier things in life or some of the more adventurous things in life. I, not so much. So,
which is why we're the perfect couple.
That's right. Because I'm more of the sort of cerebral, chill experience, a community through, art and culture and food and beverage and shopping and all those different kinds of things that you can experience. And Clinton is more like being outside and hiking places is. And it sounds the way I say it, like, he likes to be like play in the dirt and stuff. And I've actually learned to sort of embrace that. So so that people sort of understand sort of where we come from and what we're doing this whole thing for. What is travel and how is it a part of your story? Like, who are you and what is travel and how is it part of
who am I?
Who you are
okay,
today?
Big question. I'm Clinton Lewis. I'm a professional photographer and outdoor adventurer, as we've alluded to. And I was born in Memphis, and we moved around a lot with my dad's job. And so we got to experience several different cultures with North Florida, St. Louis, Dallas, and then Bowling Green, Kentucky, where we're based. And I've been for many years. And so all of those experiences has, given me a foundation of, how I view the things, how I view the world and life. Because growing up, we were always on the go. I think Dallas was the longest place that we had lived before moving to Bowling Green, and that was like a whole 5 years. And so we were pretty used to uprooting and going. And my mom was a teacher and a librarian, so every trip we took, whether it was back to Memphis to see family or whatever, we would always go to museums and go to whatever state we were in. We'd go to the state capitol and, see some of the highlights of what makes that place special. And I know we did that in Texas. We for sure did that here in Kentucky. I imagine we did that when we lived in St. Louis, but I was so young, like kindergarten, first grade. If we did, I probably don't remember it, but knowing my mom, we probably did.
Well, and your mom was she was an old school flight attendant.
Oh yeah. She was with TWA out of college, for about 6 months. Actually, she and her sister were both TWA attendants, and my aunt lasted, I think, a full year. My mom, not so much, but she did spend a month or so in Europe back in the 60s. And I have her camera from that trip, which is like really cool. And so, that on the go type of travel is very familiar to me, and that's what I'm used to. And as we're talking and daydreaming about what this podcast could be, your travel vacation experience was very different from mine. Like, you guys seemed like your parents worked, as you said, and vacation for you was all about relaxing, unplugging even before cell phones.
Oh yeah. Yeah. So I grew up in Nashville. I was actually, my dad is from, our family is from upstate New York and migrated down to Florida, as a lot of folks did back in the 60s. So they went from Niagara Falls down to South Florida. And my dad was a musician. So that took him to Gainesville, where it was like a really big bluegrass scene in the 70s. It's the hometown of Tom Petty, which I love to tell people that he's my homeboy. He is absolutely, or was absolutely my homeboy, and I miss him every day. But yeah, so very, very musical household. But what that meant was when I was just a baby, my parents moved to Nashville. And so I grew up in Nashville. And so that's how I ended up in this side of the world. And my mom and dad were self-employed for 40 years in the music business in Nashville. And of course, my dad played music. That still plays music today.
He's our intro music.
He's our intro music. Yeah. So everybody enjoy the little snippets of my dad's music that he makes for us. But anyway, so I think my love of travel didn't come until later in life, because when we went on vacation, as a lot of people do, like at first, because my family was in South Florida, when we would go down to Florida, like that was a vacation because there was a beach. We never went to it. But it was there. It was there. It was actually there. My grandpa had a pool, so, there was the vacation. But so we didn't really travel and go see stuff. My mom really, really liked to go, like we would go to Memphis, Chattanooga, not Pigeon Forge, but like Gatlinburg area and like stay in the mountains for a while. So we did like little trips to those places. And that was when we would kind of explore the area and like go up into the parks and do all that kind of stuff. But they weren't really outdoorsy people. They weren't not outdoorsy people, but they, you know, they're really not so much. So later in life, when I was a full-blown adult with kids, when I started traveling for work and going to conferences in different cities and stuff, because there for a while I traveled quite a bit with work, and I would always make it a point to go to the art museum in whatever town I was in, and to find the Indian restaurant because I loved Indian food. I knew that. Like, I knew, like, okay, I know I love art, I know I love music, and I know I love Indian food. So if I can find those three things in any given place, then I'm golden. And so that's kind of what I did, is I just sort of figured it out on my own by myself. And then when I traveled abroad, I was kind of by myself a lot for that as well. So I just was able to experience culture in sort of a different, very solitary way. But I think it was also an excellent way to experience it because I got to call the shots and stuff. So, but now today it's less about adventure and more about having an experience with you, with Clinton, my partner. And, you know, we've been married now for 5 years, and we sort of discovered together that, wow, if we take your love for outdoors and for your just natural curiosity that you have about places, and my love for culture and food and all these other different things, and we put them together, that's a pretty damn fantastic experience somewhere.
Everything.
Like, it's like,
for sure.
Wow, this is great. We're outside and we're here and we're there and we're doing all these things. And then people are like, oh my gosh, you guys are always going somewhere. Well, yeah, we are, but it seems a lot busier and exhausting than it actually is because we really enjoy it, but we also enjoy each other's company. So I think we've learned, of course, you know, we both kind of had a life do-over as grown adults. So we've sort of discovered these things together. But there are a lot of people out there that are maybe looking for something to do after they have an empty nest, or if you're kind of feeling like you're in a rut and you want to try something new, or maybe there's somewhere you've always wanted to go. Like, for example, we always wanted to go out west and see the Grand Canyon. Neither of us had done that before. So it's like, you know what? I'm so tired of talking about this. Let's just do it.
We just pulled the trigger, planned it, and did it.
And we did. And so
we will talk about that for probably 3 episodes worth of content out of that trip.
But it's just like, you know, I know that I talk to people all the time. That's like, and one of the questions people always ask you and stuff is like, if you could choose anywhere in the world to travel, where would it be? And somebody has their answer. Like, you know,
always
your
have
answer.
your answer.
Like, I know my answer.
What's holding you back?
Yeah. So how about you just do that then?
Yeah.
And, you know, I think a lot of people are intimidated by the process, or they're intimidated by the price tag. I think we've learned the price tag does not have to stop you from going anywhere, because
absolutely
everything that we do, I feel like, is crazy affordable. So we'll talk about budgeting. We'll talk about planning and talk about scoping out, you know, what's realistic for you to do. I mean, like with Clinton and adventure, you know, I was always worried that physically I couldn't keep up with you. Yeah. And really I can't.
But you can.
But the thing, I mean, I can't, but I can do what I can do. Yeah. And I can have a really enjoyable time doing it once I get out of my head and I stop thinking like, you know, it's all mental. All of my challenges, like, oh, I can't do that, or oh, I'm not built for that, or oh, I mean, literally not tall enough to do that. but I've learned that all that's in my head, and that once you just get over yourself, you can have a really great time. Right. Doing things.
Yeah, there's no minimum threshold that is universal that you have to meet in order to have a good time. I mean, that's personal to every person. And, you know, if you can get out of your comfort zone just enough to experience something with new eyes, then you're head and shoulders above everybody else that, you know, isn't willing to take the step into the unknown and really just go for it. Like a lot of people are maybe just tired of looking at all their friends' social feeds and have a little bit of FOMO, but always get defeated. They're like, oh, I don't know where to start. I can't do this. I can't do that. But you can do something. You can take a first step and and get on a good plan or a fantastic itinerary, whether you start, doing solo travel, or if you need to start with a group travel company that kind of gets you familiar with traveling before you branch out on your own. I mean, there's so many options out there to get people just experiencing your city, your state, your region, your half of the country, the whole country, the ocean, what's way over there. There's, once you really start learning to take the steps and walk the walk, I think you'll find that it's so much more approachable and doable than you actually think. So, don't hold yourself back.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think travel and the concept of travel looks different to people. There are some people who prefer to go to an all-inclusive someplace where somebody can take care of their every need, and they pay one fee and they go in and they have a relaxing week and they leave, or they go and they do an excursion, or I swam with a dolphin or whatever. And I've done that before. Or, maybe you want to go on a cruise and visit several destinations. But the tough thing about that is that the cruise is the destination, that when you stop somewhere for 8 hours, that doesn't really give you enough time to really experience a place, which I've been on several cruises now. And that to me is, I really want to experience the places. So, but you have to try different kinds of travel to really learn what you like and what you don't like. Whether you like traveling in groups with other people, whether you like traveling with your family, whether you like traveling with your friends, whether you like traveling with your significant other, or, whatever it is that you want to experience. And we have both collectively and together done all of that, all of those things. So, and there's pros and cons to all of that. I mean, people could say, I had this really cool experience when my husband and I went somewhere, or whatever. I mean, so I'm very excited to hear from people who are listening to talk about places that they've been and things that they've done as we get through this. But, we are definitely here to serve as a cheering squad and as a resource. And Clinton's actually created some super great itineraries that if people want to go be crazy and stay 8 places in 9 days, they can do that. Because we did that and we lived to tell, but it was awesome. And I want to do it again. I think there's just so many cool things. And so we're really excited and appreciative of everybody's enthusiasm and support when Clinton put it out into the universe that we were thinking about doing this.
Yeah. I mean, it certainly has been a dream of ours to, transition into the travel world because we just love it. And things being as they are, we, with everybody's, has their job and their family and family history and maybe aging parents or something. And we've seen too many times that people don't get to enjoy life because something happens, and we don't want to wait until retirement to try to travel and see the world and, enjoy our life, because nothing's guaranteed. So we're being very proactive in trying to live our life to the fullest now when we are, right at middle age in, late 40s, 50, whatever,
Don't even say the number.
I did not. And so that's truly our motivation, is that we don't want to wait to travel and wait to live life until we're finished working. It needs to be the other way around. We work to live, not live to work. And so that's very key to kind of our psyche and our worldview on, experiencing each other and experiencing the world and all the places that we love. And, our list of places that we love is rapidly growing.
Yeah. And places we want to go. And, so we've done everything from being a tourist in your hometown, to just experiencing what our own community has to offer. That was actually a super fun weekend that we were like, you know what, we're going to be a tourist in our own hometown. If you've never done it before, I really encourage you to try that. Very low commitment.
Yeah. It's great on gas mileage.
Yeah, it is. It's terrific. But, we've done that. We've traveled all over our state. We've traveled, of course, into Tennessee, and then a lot over the Southeast, like a lot of people in our region do. A lot of people within the Southeast tend to stay in the Southeast. Now we've started to venture out into places. I mean, I lived in Colorado for a while. Clinton's traveled abroad quite a bit. So, we both have a lot of varying experience to bring to this, but just to sort of add a little bit to that, we're both professional journalists. So I'm a professional writer, a trained writer. Clinton's a photojournalist. I've worked in the communication field in writing or editing or marketing capacity for 30 years. And Clinton's been a photographer that entire time. So this is like a really nice natural evolution for us to be able to use this medium to sort of discuss our experiences and share that with you all, because we really do enjoy what we get to do, and the opportunities that life has presented us. But yeah, it's a very cool thing, and we really appreciate everybody's listening and support.
Yeah. So one cool idea that we had before the show was, what were some of the earliest travel, I guess, some of the earliest formations that you had during your travel? Like, what prompted you to fall in love with travel, and some of your earlier experiences that really solidified that travel was kind of it for you?
Oh gosh. So for me, it's not just travel. It's not just experiencing a place. So for me, it has three things: music, art, and food. Mm-hmm. So I mentioned earlier that when I would travel by myself, I would sort of instinctively go find the art museum and go see what they had, so that I could. So my mom was an artist. My dad was a musician. My mom went to the Art Institute of Chicago for a couple of years. And of course, my dad's been a professional musician most of his life. And so I would always look for, can I see Picasso here, or what's on at this place or that place or whatever. Or like Memphis is a great example of being able to go to a city and experience music culture, or
Absolutely.
A really incredible history and
barbecue.
Yeah. And yes, actually. The rendezvous. Gosh, there is no better. So, but yeah, I think my mom was in civil rights marches in the 60s in Chicago. And so, when I go up there, I want to travel the path that she traveled. I wanted to see the Picasso statue she used to sit under in, over by City Hall, and kind of understand my mom's journey. And these, of course, are things that I wanted to know later on in life, now that my mom has had a stroke and she's nonverbal. So I can't ask her these questions anymore. So I'm really glad that I asked her those questions then, and then I went to experience that. I went to Italy, and I traveled some of the path that my family would have traveled when they came to the U.S. My sister and I went to New York City and found our great-grandparents in Ellis Island.
That's so cool.
I am a second generation American, so I don't have a lot of the stories that many people have, because, of course, the United States is certainly a melting pot. I know a lot of people have a story very similar to mine. But that is also what really fascinates me about Kentucky and bourbon culture, because it's generations and generations and generations of families and people that have been producing this product in this place for years and years and years. That to me is a fascinating story. American history was never my best subject. But I have to say, I love it when I meet people and I'm talking to people and they're talking about their families and their histories, and how we've grown up on this hill and wherever this town is, that's, this street that's named after our family. And lots of people in Kentucky have that story. And I'm fascinated by that, because I'm like, my family came over on the boat in 1913 and we, I make a hell of a red sauce, so right. It's like, that to me is, you have so many different people that have the quintessential story. And that's what I like to do is I like to hear people's stories and experience places through the art, the culture, the food, the bars, the history, whatever it is that makes this place what it is. We went to New Mexico recently, and I can't get enough spicy food since coming. I just fell in love with everything about that place. And so, we will talk about that in a future episode. Yeah. But that's just one example of I couldn't get enough of that.
Right.
So, that for me, it's more of a sensory experience. More so than just I traveled somewhere, I went somewhere. And I think that's what a lot of people take out of travel too, is that it can be very profound. That's why, I didn't travel abroad until I was in my 30s. And, I really wish that I would have taken the opportunities that were in front of me to do that when I was a college student, or, I didn't really have that opportunity in high school like a lot of people do now. So now I really want to encourage my kids you need to go study abroad, or you need to make sure that you go experience life so that you have that worldview before you're in your 30s.
Right.
What about you? You've been all over the place.
Yeah, I've had a couple of really formative experiences during my travels, and two really come to mind. First of all is when I was in high school, we hosted a foreign exchange student from Germany, my junior year in high school. Tommy was from this tiny little neighborhood, technically in Berlin, but it was kind of shaped like a lollipop that stuck out into Potsdam. And during the Cold War, they were surrounded on 3.5 sides by the Berlin Wall. And so we hosted Tommy for a year here, and then he invited me back to Germany to stay with them for a month, 4 weeks, in between my junior and senior year that summer. So aside from going on a church mission trip down to 10 feet over the border in Mexico to do a couple service projects, this was my first big experience overseas, and I was completely by myself. I can't believe that my parents put me on an airplane at age 16, almost 17, to go to Germany by myself.
There is no way. We would never do that.
I know. I know our girls. No, there's no way. Sorry. But, maybe, I don't know. But, from right off the bat, sitting in JFK airport for, 2-3 hour layover or whatever, I met Dwight Yoakam's dad and talked to him for the whole 2 hours.
Did you know who Dwight Yoakam was?
I had heard of him. Yeah.
I was going to say he had to have been really popular.
Yeah, he was definitely popular in the mid 90s.
In the 90s?
Mid 90s, yeah, when my trip was. So that was pretty cool. And it's oh, okay. Meeting people. And I guess I was always sort of slightly introverted, but then I'd choose a profession where you have to be extremely
so hard to believe
extroverted. And so anyway, I get over to Germany, staying with Tommy's family. And because German school is so much more advanced than U.S. schools, coming here to study for him was basically taking a year off school. So as soon as he got back home, he was studying to try to catch up to all of his classmates going into their next grade. And so for the first week and a half, it was mostly we would go out in the evenings and experience stuff. And Tommy's parents worked, of course. And so we would go sightsee a little bit in the afternoons and the evenings. And I would just sit around the house for the most of the day. And so finally one day, Tommy's dad was why are you here? Why are you in the house? I was well, Tommy's studying. I can't go do whatever because, your wife is busy until 5 o'clock, and then we get on their bikes and we go to Potsdam or we go visit whatever. And Tommy was studying forever, and it's well, we'd go to the Mexico Platz and go get a Döner mit Salsa, kind of it's like a euro, a German version of the euro at midnight. We'd go do this with all his friends. And he was no. You go outside, you walk to the bus station, you get on the bus, you take the bus to the subway station, go in the city, and then be back by like 6, 7 or whatever for dinner. And then, we'll do whatever after dinner. I'm like, say what? Like me by myself? He's like, yeah, it's easy. I'm like, okay, cue the meme of like the fuzzy guy, like giving you the side eye, like really? And
like, I'm allowed to do that.
I'm allowed to do that. Like I'm, okay. So here we go. Next day, I walk down to the bus station, and go to the U-Bahn and take the subway into the town and just randomly went places all over Berlin. And that was exceptionally weird because it was 1994. So barely 5 years after the Berlin Wall fell. And there was still so much turmoil and upheaval from the East and West coming together in such a dramatic fashion. And it was absolutely eye-opening. I found my way around to Checkpoint Charlie, and there were still a lot of remnants of the wall that were up during that time. So I got to see that before they were all either broken down and sold as souvenirs or just destroyed and carted off somewhere. So that was really, really eye-opening and really kind of set me on a course for exploring on my own and being comfortable in uncomfortable places. And it was the Love Parade while I was there, which is like the biggest techno festival in the world. And so that was a huge influence back then. And so I was in the middle of Berlin during this huge party and parade with like 300,000 people, like all in the middle. I mean, it was absolutely insane.
When you're 16, it was
when I'm 16, it was insane.
When you were 16 years old.
And then like going to these little clubs on the old East Side was just like taking a step back in time and seeing what the 60s and the 50s looked like. Outside of all the construction cranes that had gone up in that few years, you could hold your hand above the horizon and, outside of the cranes, see, what structures in the 1950s looked like. And
wow.
I mean, it was really, really wild. And so that really supercharged my curiosity, as far as like, what does this place offer? What can I go see? How long am I willing to be out on my own in a place that's very unfamiliar and be truly a stranger in a strange land? Because I spoke a little bit of German, but not much. And just all the experiences and discoveries that you make being on your own, in a situation like that was just mind blowing.
Yeah.
So that was an early, travel, experience for me. Later in life, after I had been at WKU for a while, I had the opportunity to go to Peru with one of our geography professors and take pictures of a scientific mountaineering expedition, that were studying climate change. And that was my first experience in, I guess, what we would consider a third world situation. Because in Peru, as soon as you get out of Lima, you're first world, third world, is very, very stark. And so, that was incredibly eye-opening to see and truly be immersed in a culture that is radically different and, not as, I don't want to say not as advanced, but in a different way.
It's just different. I mean, their reality and, people's reality in different parts of the world are different.
Yeah.
And they say all the time, Americans, we don't know how good we have it. And
right.
It's absolutely true.
It's absolutely true.
But does a person in an impoverished community know that they're poor?
Right.
In all situations,
because they're just living life.
They're living their life. So it's just a different reality.
Enjoyable. And so their day-to-day life experience was very different than, what we have here.
Yeah. And
so that was a huge impression on me. Nearly dying on the side of a mountain was a huge impression on me.
I would say so.
Set, and, really forced me to reassess like my life and, my health choices and, and activities and everything like that. So needless to say, I was much more active after that and really took, my health and my well-being and everything much more seriously after that. And, I didn't want to be held back or limited by myself, whether it's physically or mentally or anything. And so that was a huge emotional intelligence growth spurt, was having that experience and being really immersed in the Peruvian culture and the Quechua culture, and just how fascinating that was, and how no matter where you go, whether it's a friendly nation to the U.S. or not, that people are just people, and they just want to live, and they want to learn as much about you as you want to learn from them. And there's just a great exchange of culture and information and, just overall goodwill that can be had with an experience just one-on-one. And,
I think
that's amazing.
The more that you learn about any other human being, I think it makes you a better person. And just listening to somebody else's story and understanding where somebody else is coming from, and, understanding what makes somebody special. And I find it very, very interesting that, there are a lot of really polarizing topics that we have here in the United States that people in other countries just simply don't have. They just don't experience. And those stories from people are really fascinating too. And when I was working on my doctoral program at WKU years ago, we had a couple of students from a couple different countries, and I just really enjoyed listening to their stories. And they're like, man, you Americans. It always started that way. Man, you Americans. Like, I don't even know. Like, should I say I'm sorry? What should I say? But I really do. I definitely envy people that have opportunity to travel more than we do, to travel abroad, certainly, because we both work full time and have side gigs also. So, I would love to have more time to be able to do things. But I think we all would. I think we all
absolutely
wish we had more time to do any number of things. And, Clinton made it a point. You made a point earlier talking about other obligations that we have, whether it's I know a lot of people who have kids that travel for their ball teams, or people, including us, who have parents that are getting older that we need to help from time to time, or we need to help every day in some cases, So yes, there are certainly life obligations that can keep you from maybe going on that huge 2-week journey to wherever. But you know what? It can't keep you from maybe taking a day here or a day there or a weekend.
A long weekend is amazing.
Yes, because speaking as someone who has served as a caregiver myself, I know that a day of a break for yourself can be very recharging. And so I hope that through this podcast that people will maybe open their eyes and try something, challenge themselves to extend themselves a little bit. Believe me, being married to the Clinton Lewis, I have to challenge myself constantly to be like, yes, I can get on that paddleboard. Yes, I can. God, where we were, what was in Belize doing the, what was that called?
Oh, the zip line.
Zip line. A zip line is not scary for me, but it was so freaking hot. And that was the thing. I was like, you want me to walk up that mountain crazy. And it's 3,000, the humidity. And I was like, okay, seriously, man, all right, I'm doing this for you. Yeah. But I have never once regretted trying something different. And I might have looked stupid when I did it, but I think if people get out of their own head and stop worrying about how they look, or stop worrying about what other people will think of them, or stop worrying about their physical ability to walk up that big hill over there or jump off of something. Although I'm not going to jump off something to the extent that Clinton will jump off something. Yeah. I might.
We'll talk about that later.
Yes. But I think for me, that was probably half the hurdle, was just getting over myself and being like, you know what, I can do that. And maybe that might be fun. So why not? You know, why not? And so maybe we can inspire somebody out there to, you know, pick up your phone and start doing some research.
Yeah. Just take the first step.
Yeah.
Just take the first step.
Make a list. So that'll be our first challenge to everybody. Make a list. If you don't already have one, I highly, and we'll give you some tools because we use lots of tools. But the tools that we use are not anything that not everybody else in the world doesn't have at their disposal. Lots of Google Sheets. We love us some Google Sheets and Google Docs.
Sheets and Google Maps.
Google Maps, Google Sheets, spreadsheet. I love spreadsheets. Love some spreadsheets. Packing lists. I've made so many packing lists, and I'll share these with you all as we move forward, just so you have them because they're super handy, as Clinton likes to say.
That's right.
It's so handy.
But ultimately, I mean, we've started many ideas for trips just by saying, where would we want to have our morning coffee?
Yes.
Like, is it on a beach? Is it in a mountain cabin somewhere? Is it on, you know, the sidewalk cafe in New York? It's like, you know, just a simple question, a simple prompt can snowball into an amazing experience.
Yeah.
So take the first step and just think about, where do I want to have coffee that morning?
Yeah.
Like, what's somewhere
make
like
a list,
super cool?
Or even better, if you're a social media person, which if you're listening to this podcast, hopefully you are, give us a follow on the Facebook and the Insta. But you know, we have pin boards. We have so many boards on Pinterest of places that we want to travel and places. Ooh, look at that. Or like, you know, I've got stuff saved on Airbnb all over the place and like different places that, oh, wow, I want to stay in a yurt. I want to stay in a treehouse. I want to stay, you know, like we stayed in this crazy tent outside of
Grand Canyon,
the Grand Canyon. And then we camped one night in a tent at the foot of Monument Valley. I mean, like, and I don't like sleeping on the ground, and I'm sure I will have lots of opportunities to talk about my dislike for sleeping on the ground.
Yeah,
but you know,
true.
I will do anything for one night. And
that's right.
And I slept.
And, oh boy, were the views worth it?
Yeah, exactly. That's why it's like, how can I possibly get mad at Clinton for making me sleep on the damn ground? I was convinced we were going to die the whole time, by the way. But you know, I will absolutely sleep on the ground if like. I wish that actually you can see the joy on his face because I took a picture of him when he woke up that morning and we were looking at Monument Valley, which is a place he always wanted to go. Yeah. So like you would be surprised the things that you would be willing to do for your person when they want to go somewhere. So, so there you go.
So that and much more general hilarity is what you have to look forward to on this podcast. We'll have a mix of stories, some tips and tricks, some tools that we use, and just overall general inspiration to get out and experience life.
Yes. One thing that I will add is to tell you what we're not. And we will probably invite some people onto this podcast to speak to you about like airline points and things like that. We don't do that. Maybe we should, or we should. But like, I don't have time for that. The way that we travel is much more spontaneous. It's like, hey, we've got a weekend off in 2 weeks. Where are we going?
Yeah.
And believe me, it's never anything like crazy extravagant. It's like, let's go camping or let's go check out this waterfall somewhere or whatever. But we are not going to give you that kind of detailed information because that's not our expertise. But our expertise is kind of instinctual. But yeah,
we'll try to point you in the right direction to those resources because there's people that have it dialed. There's services that help you figure it out, and we're just not there yet. That's still way over my head. Like I just get excited when Southwest has a 50% off of their points sale, whatever. It's like, well, I'll take take advantage of that. But anything beyond that, like playing the points game and figuring out
extreme couponing of travel.
Yeah, when to book travel. Like you've got a 15-minute window when the rates are the lowest and you can use the most points, whatever. Like
that gives me anxiety. Like I don't, no, I'm just going to book it when I book it. And like I think the trip that we took recently, we probably watched airfare a lot longer than we ever had for anywhere we've ever gone.
That's true.
And I'm just like, but it makes me nervous. I'm like, buy the ticket so we have it and we know we have it. And now I can book the rest of it because I know we're going to get there.
That's right.
No.
So that's what you have to look forward to. We hope you join us on this journey. We are really excited.
We are.
It's going to be so much fun. We are going to be active on social media. We have our Instagram page, so where-to-next_podcast on Instagram, and then pretty much the same thing on Facebook. You can find us there. Follow us along. It'll be super fun, enjoyable, and probably very funny.
Yeah, give us ideas and ask us questions, and we can answer your questions and make you famous and stuff.
So until then, where to next?
Where to next, buddy?